All right, and it looks like the people joining the meeting slowed down a little bit. So at this point, we can go ahead and begin our input session. Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and welcome everyone to this afternoon's input session, our second input session on the Commonwealth's Digital Opportunity Plan. And there seems to be more folks joining, so I'll give them another minute or so. Not as bad as the Google doorbell, but just as annoying. All right, and so next slide. And so I'm Tamara Holmes, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director of the Office of Broadband for the Commonwealth. And so this afternoon, we're going to really do a overview and a bit of a deep dive in our draft Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan that is officially due to our federal funder on January 5th. And so this afternoon, we're going to go over basically what is the Federal Digital Equity Act, what is the Commonwealth doing in relation to it. We'll talk about our plans outline and the timeline, and then we'll talk about the needs assessment that was conducted that included both surveys, interviews with the subject matter experts and stakeholder engagement that occurred across the Commonwealth. We'll also share on key themes and goals that came out of the needs assessment and recommendations that we're looking at in terms of implementing a program in the future with some additional federal funds. And then we'll give you all an opportunity to get an update on where we are with the public comment period. I think we're almost 10 days to our deadline of the official submission of comments. And so we'll go over that and that process as well. Just a few housekeeping. If you've called in, we will give you all an opportunity to ask questions or provide comment during the session. For those of you that are joining us virtually, please feel free to put questions or comments in the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the duration of this afternoon's input session. And so I'm just going to go over a couple of slides, and then I'm going to officially turn it over to Cameron Lewis, who serves as the state's Digital Opportunity Coordinator. All right. All right, so I'm just going to go over really the Digital Equity Act overview. For those of you who are not familiar, it was signed into law under the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. The Digital Equity Act provides funding to states to identify and address digital opportunity needs for their residents. And so really what has been laid forth in the requirements to develop either what is called a Digital Equity Plan or a Digital Opportunity Plan is really having an understanding of what exactly is digital opportunity. And so, and I'm going to just keep admitting people. And so, what that really focuses on, based on NTIA, who's the agency that's the funder, really three key pillars really formulate what they consider a digital opportunity. One, accessibility to affordable internet, making sure folks have digital skills to navigate the internet, and then access to connected devices. And so in terms of funding, why this is important is that there's $2.75 billion to establish grant programs at the federal level. One, which we just checked the box on and we'll be submitting on January 5th, is the planning grant program that was open to each state and territory in the US. And so we received a formula allocation to do the needs assessment and develop the state's plan. And so as a result of developing this plan and ultimately submitting it in the new year, it unlocks access to funding both for a formula allocation under what NCI is calling a digital equity capacity grant program, and also unlocks access to competitive grant programs at NCIA for Virginia stakeholders across the Commonwealth. And so basically, once we turn in this plan and once it's approved, we'll get an allocation to help implement the plan. And so at the bottom of the right corner of this slide, here are some examples of how digital opportunity funds can be used. Of course, there's official guidance that will come out from NTIA's digital equity program, but what you see at the bottom of right corner of the slide is just 6 examples of how funds can be used by states or entities within states. And I think number 4 is my last slide. Next slide. And so the Digital Equity Act really focuses on covered populations. They're all listed to the left of this slide. I'm not going to go over each one of them verbatim, but what you see at the bottom of the slide is that 81.1% of Virginians are amongst covered populations. That means residents in Virginia check one or more of these boxes as a covered population. And what you'll see on the right side of the slide are just some graphic depiction of the different percentages of the population that fall under each of those covered population classifications defined by NCIA. And so with that, I'm going to officially turn over the remainder of the presentation and conversation. Oh, Cam, did you want me to do this one? You got it?
It's either way. We're both going to say the same things.
And so I'm going to go ahead and officially turn the presentation over to Cameron Lewis, who will go through the remainder of today's input session as well as facilitate the public input session. And so with that, thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Much appreciated. Once again, thank you all for being here for the community input session and joining us as we talk about this digital opportunity plan that we've been developing. As Dr. Holmes has said, we're submitting this final plan January 5th to the federal side to get the approval. We are currently in the public comment period. So everything that we are currently talking on or everything that we are currently presenting on, if there's anything that you have, please feel free to submit a public comment and we will take into consideration everything that comes through. All right. So to start off, I'm just going to give an overview of the activities that we did within the Digital Opportunity Program. So the main things, as you see on the right side of this screen, this graphic here, we're looking at these three circles, whereas the middle is the regional digital opportunity plans. So Virginia was split up into 9 different regions, and there were 8 community action agencies that were lead agencies for these regions. And they were the primaries of the point of contacts and also to host the activities underneath the regional digital opportunity plans. The outer circles, you see each of them needed to conduct a needs assessment. They needed to conduct stakeholder engagement as well as include recommended actions with their regional opportunity plan. All right, so another big thing that we did underneath our activities in this program was our statewide digital opportunity survey. Now, just to go on, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with the finding of these surveys and some of the information that we've been able to develop from these surveys. But we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to get their voice heard. So we opened up in early November 22nd after getting the funding down from the federal level. And then from November 2022 up until about August, September 2023, we were conducting all of the activities underneath the state digital equity program. All right. So as said before, some of the findings on these on the statewide survey is 1, 2 out of 5 respondents access the internet using their cellular data plan, whereas 1/3 use a cable modem. So more people than not are actually using their cellular hotspots or their cellular service to be able to access the internet. And as we all know, that may not be the most reliable source of internet. With people that cannot access the internet, 45% does not because it's not available in their area, whereas 29% says that it's too expensive. 51 of respondents is unwilling to pay more for better services, whereas 26% are unsure. Most respondents are comfortable doing regular day-to-day tasks, but they're not as comfortable with doctor's appointments or these telehealth appointments that's now come up. As well, for number 5, 81% have not applied for an accessibility program, and only 1/3 are aware that these programs even exist. And last but absolutely not least, one of the most common problems that's come from our survey findings is realizing that the respondent says that their subscribed speeds are unachievable or they have the lack of access to the technology itself. All right, and now going back to these regions, with Virginia being split up into 9 different regions, these community action agencies had all of the surveys pulled within their regions and broken down directly to them. So some of the comments or some of the high level points that came from these community action agencies or regions are: 1, for CAPSOL, 40% identified cost as the greatest barrier. So we all understand that affordability is going to be something that we are paying attention to, or something that we are constantly trying to take into consideration as we continue forward with achieving universal broadband. With CERCAP in the Southeast region, $50 to $100 is how much they roughly spend on a monthly basis for their internet service. Whereas in the Northern Virginia area with People Inc., 24% spend over $125 per month versus that $50 to $100 a month. For HR Cap down in the Hampton Roads area, most people they express interest in low cost or the ability of getting free internet services, but over 81% of them have not applied to a subsidy program such as ACP. With Bay aging on the Eastern Shore side, 70% are willing or unwilling or unsure about paying more. 56% in the capital area or the capital region would not be willing to pay more. And in the Improvement Association areas, 63% of respondents are unaware of existing subsidy programs. Now, these are just some high-level findings from what we found from our statewide survey. We understand that the survey itself goes deeper, and we can take a look into each and every single data point. But from a high-level standpoint, we understand most are looking for that affordability aspect. Most are looking for the access to the internet. Most are looking for devices. So we understand where people are coming from in the sense of where the survey is. Now, from our entire regional digital opportunity program, within the regions or within the digital opportunity program itself, we had a case study program as well that supplemented for the digital opportunity program. And these case studies were working with different agencies and organizations that are already doing work in the broadband space for us to get them to develop a case study so we can determine what's efficient, what's already working at the regional level. So to go through some of these, we have Literacy for Life. Now, Literacy for Life, they had a digital literacy skills program, and they focused on individuals with language barriers. Now, this program, it went through a North Star assessment, and with that, there were a couple things that were found, but one of the biggest things that came to our attention was most people that said they're comfortable doing most day-to-day tasks, most daily things, bank accounts, emails, so on and so forth. We actually saw within this North Star assessment that in the email unit, I believe it was under 10% were actually able or fully functional or comfortable handling these email tasks. So what we found is most people are saying that they are comfortable, but then when they get to the actual assessment of doing the work or being able to be functional, they're realizing that they may need more technical assistance than they originally thought. With Edu Futuro, this is a Latinx founded company, and they develop tech for parents. And this is another digital literacy curriculum. And with Edu Futuro, they're looking to teach everybody basic tasks. So anything from turning on a computer to being able to open up your web platforms, being able to handle different applications on your computerized system or your internet connected devices, handling the basic tasks of being able to utilize these devices. The Smith County Public Library, they piloted a digital navigator program where they were offering one-on-one technical assistance to residents in the area. Now, this was big because as they are deploying internet in their area and giving people access, they're also deploying individuals or human capital to be able to work with them one-on-one. So they have that technical assistance. They're able to be walked through the program. The Tri-Area Community Health Organization, they received a case study to look at their virtual care optimization initiative. And from COVID-19, we realized how important it is to have that telehealth option. So this organization wrote a case study on the data, the findings, the baseline that they have from their program. And last and absolutely not least, we have VACAP, the Virginia Community Action Partnership. And this is a partnership for the 31 CAAs across Virginia. And we reached out and had them develop a case study on the broadband peer group. Now, this broadband peer group was amazing. I personally was able to be a part of this peer group, and it gave everyone the opportunity to express best practices, some of the obstacles or issues that they may have run into, or if we're specifically trying to get to a specific population, such as incarcerated individuals, there may be people within that group that work directly with incarcerated individuals and can relay the information on who's the best point of contact to reach out to. So we gave the ability of having people on one plateau, one playing ground where they're able to have an open peer-to-peer conversation and determine how are we able to close the digital divide. Now, As said before, going into this regional digital opportunity program, here on the screen, you see the 9 regions of Virginia, and there are 2 white spots as well. These are localities that at the time we were of the understanding that they were developing plans in their regions already. But we are working specifically with these counties, with these localities to continue to push them along the line. They were just not included within these individual regions to be included within the plan. But an honorable mention to them, they do have some plans that are developed, and those are developed in our appendix on our digital opportunity website under the resources tab. Now, just to go over a couple of things, I want to pull some of the things that came out from our programs. So from CERCAP, one of the big things that came up was offering safety and security protocols for public Wi-Fi access, as well as offering refurbished device lending programs. Those are 2 things that came up that we haven't either seen or is not as prevalent that would be very beneficial to the region. For HRCAP down in Hampton Roads, they're looking for a coordinated outreach for available services to the community, as well as IT assistance, technical assistance, and digital navigation services. For CAPSAW, the big thing that came across the board, they say the same things as the other regions, looking into the digital navigation and the technical assistance, excuse me. But the big thing that they brought up was developing mobile-friendly websites and resources. This is big because, as before stating, most people are accessing the internet utilizing their phones or utilizing them as hotspots. So making sure that they're accessible to whichever device you're opening up these web platforms on are pivotal. For the Northern Virginia area, for the Nova area, with People Inc., they're looking for computer classes for all levels of knowledge and multi-generational approaches to digital skills training. So training high school kids, training college kids to then be able to reach up and train the adults, train their parents, their older family members, so on and so forth. And then obviously with the different levels of knowledge, we understand that it may be a little bit more difficult to verbalize that you are not up to date or you are not as well versed in technology as most of the world is now based on technology. So we understand with some individuals, there may be an embarrassment factor, or there may be a factor where they just don't want to come out in front of a group and say, I'm not aware, or I'm not sure, I need help. So offering classes for different levels of knowledge will give them that ability of saying, you know what, I'm with people that are in my range of understanding, my range of competency, and I can grow with all of these people here versus feeling like I'm the outlier. For the Southwest side, they were looking at the Digital Navigator program as well as technical support services. For Improvement Association, they're looking to form granular broadband committees as well as advertise available opportunities through different media channels such as radio, social media, television, so on and so forth. For the Capital Region with CAPUP, they're looking to expand reliable device distribution programs as well as establish tech support and digital navigation networks. For Bay Aging and the Eastern Shore, they're looking to increase resource awareness like ACP enrollment, as well as pursuing the LECAP program for line extension or middle mile assistance as well. For Williamsburg, James City County, which is last but absolutely not least, they're looking for collaboration and partnership to share available resources, as well as they're looking to train educators to be able to teach digital literacy programs. So with that being said, I want to take a little time to speak directly into some of our stakeholder engagement that we conducted over this period. So the first thing that we did, we conducted one-on-one stakeholder interviews with people that are in this broadband service or people that have a hand in the industry and looking to continue to boost either awareness or boost their involvement, their engagement. So we conducted one-on-one interviews with these groups and organizations. We also did community input sessions such as this one in each individual regions to give the community the opportunity to extend their own voice. We conducted broadband-centric focus groups, giving the entire group the opportunity to, one, bounce ideas off of each other, but then also align on what is the digital divide that they see as a group, what are they running into, and then final, which is public comment, which will be closing on December 29th. Now, real quickly, I wanted to go over some of these stakeholders. We did 17 stakeholder one-on-one stakeholder interviews. But just to name a few, some of those interviews were state and local Department of Social Services, the Virginia Municipal League, the Virginia Department of Education, the Nottoway Tribe, and Virginia Cares, just to name a few. Now, some of the key themes that came across the board for this digital opportunity plan are here as follows. One, sustainability and sustainment. We're looking at programs that are going to be sustainable long term. We don't want to invest into devices that will no longer be available or no longer be up to date 2 or 3 years from now. That would mean that the money that we invested into those devices now become null and void unless we find a way to refurbish them and continue to keep them in the loop. We don't want one-time investment things where the money will fall off and we don't have the ability of continuing to support the community. We're looking for these sustainable programs. Next, we're looking for focused resources for covered populations. Most of the things we have now for adoption are widespread. They're not focused on a covered population. They're not focused directly on one individual person in itself. They're looking at the entire Commonwealth. So developing some of these focus resources for the covered populations where we can say, veterans, if you need support, we can support you in this manner, or individuals that are disabled, individuals that are incarcerated. We have specific resources to help you because we thought about how could this group actually need the support and need the assistance. Third, being partnerships and collaborations, working with organizations, working with individuals that are in this industry, and continuing to boost the awareness, continuing to boost the voice that we are already pushing out from DHCD, but also bringing other people to the table, bringing people that should be involved in this conversation and, committing with those intros. With number 4, we're looking for the awareness of resources. Just as it said with the survey findings, most people, they have an understanding that there are adoption programs or there may be accessibility programs, things along those lines, but they're not aware that they exist in their region, or they're not aware of how they apply, or if there is an ability to apply, there may be a substantial amount of confusion that happens once you get to the actual application portal. So the awareness of these resources and that it's available to you and everybody that's in your community is another big thing. Whereas last but absolutely not least is capacity building. From many organizations, we've had conversations about developing these digital navigator programs or developing technical assistance programs. And one of the biggest things they said is the capacity is something that we're paying attention to. We're not sure if we're able to continue with a sustainable program without being able to build on our capacity and having the human capital. So these are 5 things across the board that's come up with our Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan. And some of the next things that are coming up are the goals and the objectives that we're looking at for the plan. So this first goal would be to increase awareness of federal resources and other available broadband resources. Whereas the second goal is strengthen organizational capacity to enhance community efforts to address the barriers and needs of digital opportunity. To go a little bit deeper into each individual goal, I have these next 2 slides, the first being about the awareness. So the objectives that we're looking to build out underneath this awareness are as follows. We plan to develop a statewide digital resource hub, which that'll give us the ability of creating a one-stop shop for existing resources and programs. Anything that we currently have, if we put it in one space and we tell everybody that that one space is available to them, they can go there to find out what resources are available to them or what can they utilize for their family in their area. The second objective, promote and measure the ACP enrollment. We're looking to boost ACP enrollment by 5%. With the third, we're looking to design and implement awareness campaigns to inform communities about existing broadband services and resources, as well as leveraging partnerships to utilize various communication channels. Anything from print, social media, digital, you name it, we want to find a way to be able to get this communication out to the stakeholders that need it. And the last objective at the bottom of the screen here is establish and leverage existing partnership with community stakeholders and community-based and faith-based organizations to advocate for the importance of broadband and available resources at the community level. Now, for the second goal, we have a few more objectives that are broken out. So to strengthen organizational capacity, we're looking at supporting efforts to develop and implement digital navigator and technical support programs. We're looking to support efforts that address cybersecurity and utilizing the internet in a safe manner. We're also looking to support efforts that address digital literacy and encourage the development of digital opportunity programs specified to cover populations. Um, Another objective or goal of ours is to assist communities to develop and expand large-scale efforts to utilize for the utilization of broadband or for the adoption of broadband. And to do this, we're looking at supporting the development or expansion of sustainable long-term loaner programs, providing secure internet devices. We're looking at supporting the development and expansion of sustainable programs for telehealth, telemedicine, smart farming, precision agriculture, smart business development, and other programs that are identified using the needs of the covered populations. And last, we're looking at supporting the development of digital opportunity programming efforts, targeting incarcerated individuals and individuals with disabilities. Now, after all of our goals, our plans, our objectives, our strategies, we're ultimately breaking down to what is our plan of implementation? How are we going to take whatever money is coming down from federal and how are we actually going to push it out to the state and implement these programs or implement these thoughts, implement these plans to be able to close this digital divide? So the first recommendation that we're looking at is setting up systemic solutions. Now, this is a widespread thought process, but to explain some of these systemic solutions that we're thinking about, our core activity would be creating a centralized digital opportunity resource hub. So that one place, that one-stop shop where you'll be able to go in, click, find everything you need that can push you in the direction of ACP, find all frequency asked questions, find all available resources that'll be in one spot. For our second recommendation, we're looking at developing or supporting capacity building programs. And a core activity is administering a digital opportunity capacity subgrant program. So as Dr. Holmes said before, with us submitting this plan up to the federal side, we then unlock the next phase, which is the digital equity capacity grant program. And with this capacity grant program, we'll get a certain amount of dollars down from federal for us to be able to develop a subgrant program to build out the capacity and then be able to build the sustainability for these programs. For the third recommendation, we're looking at developing and supporting large-scale initiatives. And core activities for that would be supporting large-scale digital transitions in Virginia. These large-scale programs is going to support the workforce development or support Virginia as a whole as we continue to move towards universal broadband. That's what these large-scale initiatives are going to be. And these will continue to be developed, as Dr. Holmes says all the time, and I take it and say it on all of my meetings. We're building the plan as we're flying. So with this, we're giving us an opportunity to have a open ability of supporting the people that need it, while not saying that we're going to do one exact thing. We need to still develop and take a look at the assessment deeper down at the granular level to determine what are some of these programs large scale that would be able to affect the covered populations or the Commonwealth as a whole. And the fourth recommendation is looking at specific needs-based initiatives. And the core activity for that is assisting communities to develop and expand large-scale efforts for the utilization or the adoption of broadband. We're going to have other programs that are coming down the pipeline that will continue to support these implementation plans. But these are the four main things that we're looking at from our digital opportunity plan and how we're looking at taking our next step into the capacity grant program. Now, I'd like to go over a few things, just taking a look at some of the challenges that we went through, as well as some of the resolutions, some of the solutions we came up to these challenges. The three challenges we saw were community engagement, as well as tribal engagement, the lack of knowledge or the lack of understanding the importance, and then organizational capacity. So at the top, getting the community and the tribal community involved in the work that we're doing was a little tough for us. Sometimes we reach out and we say, hey, look, we're looking at doing this thing with broadband, and it may not come across as something that they either understand, or at this exact moment, they may say, well, broadband's not coming to my area, so I'm not paying attention. For any reason, we had one of our community input sessions where they said, well, it's in the middle of the summer and it's kind of hard to get people outside when they have AC in their homes. So we understand that there's 1,001 obstacles in getting people to engage, especially when it's an in-person environment. For the lack of knowledge, the lack of importance, many people have let's say DSL. If they have DSL and their computer works or their phone works and everything goes according to plan, their big question is going to be, why do I need this? If everything is working, don't fix what's not broken. So a lot of people may miss that importance of, if you have broadband, then the kids, the next generation, will continue to stay in your area. If those kids continue to stay in the area, that boosts the workforce, that boosts the ability you have in that county, in that locality, that area, that region. So some of these factors being explained to the stakeholders is going to be pivotal with the next actions and the next steps that we have coming up. And last being organizational capacity, which I explained a little bit before. With the resolutions, we're looking at continuing to do digital opportunity planning activities and implementation activities. We're looking to continue with collaborations and partnerships, prioritizing outreach and awareness. We're also looking to invest into sustainable digital literacy and skills programs. And last, we're looking to support programs that offer technical assistance and digital navigations. Each of these things, as well as you could throw in there the capacity subgrant program, will directly affect these key challenges. Now I'd like to go over a brief timeline of where we currently are and then where we're looking at being over the next 5 years. From 2023, where we currently are, we've officially submitted the draft Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan. It's going to be open for public comment until December 29th. So please all feel free to take a review and please submit a public comment. The Office of Broadband will prepare for the release of the Digital Equity Capacity Grant funding to come out in 2024. Now, in 2024, the Commonwealth will submit the Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan to NTIA. And following the allocation of the capacity grant funding, the Office of Broadband will work to develop the Virginia Centralized Digital Opportunity Tool. This being that resource, that one-stop hub that I was speaking about. Over the next 2 years, from 24 to 26, we're looking at the Office of Broadband managing these subgrant programs, as well as managing any non-deployment subgrant programs that will be housed underneath DHCD. In 2027, we'll look to reform the Digital Opportunity Survey statewide to determine the effectiveness of our plan. We're going to turn around and look at, over the last 4 or 5 years, how we actually affected the stakeholders and how we affected the community. Are we actually doing what we said we were doing? And then we can assess from there. But that will give us the opportunity to reevaluate, do another survey, and look at the new assessment of Virginia or of the Commonwealth to determine what needs to be done. And in 2028, Virginia will develop and release the Commonwealth Digital Opportunity Plan 5-year report, and that'll detail everything that's happened over the last 5 years, from the baseline of the original surveys all the way into the most previous survey, to determine the effectiveness of the plan. And now, as I said, the Digital Opportunity Plan is currently open for public comment. It has been posted on our Digital Opportunity Plan, or our Digital Opportunity website. So please feel free to go. There will be an orange box there that says click here to review the Digital Opportunity Plan. When you click there, the plan will open up. You'll see this screen, you'll see this front page here on the right, and then you'll be able to send an email for public comment. All right. So once again, we would love for everyone to take an opportunity to review and submit a public comment if something does come up. Now, NTIA has given us feedback, and we have had some common themes that have come across. NTIA has suggested that we develop more measurable objectives, kind of getting down to exact numbers of how we plan to affect the area, how we plan to progress. Also developing baselines to be able to measure that success, as well as adding an implementation timeline, and then adding detail to that timeline to determine when will we get these things done over the course of time. Now, with that being said, I do want to give us the opportunity to open up for Q&A. But I would like to thank you all for your time in reviewing this digital opportunity plan during this community input session. We are looking, as NTIA gave us additional feedback, looking for those measurable objectives, looking for how can we continue to fine tooth and comb through this plan and make it the final plan. and making sure that it's a comprehensive plan for the entire state of Virginia. All right. But with that said, I will open it up for Q&A. So if there are any questions, feel free. You can come off of mute and ask a question, or you can also submit them into the chat. Hey, how's it going, Eric?
It's going well. Thanks so much. Thanks, Dr. Holmes and Cam, for the great presentation. I just, you know me, but for those not on the call, Eric Johnson, I'm the CEO of the Virginia Community Action Partnership, and we represent the 31 community action agencies in Virginia. We just wanted to thank the DHCD team for excellent work on this plan, and all the stakeholders on the call and who are part of the regional digital opportunity plans. We just really believe in this effort and just commend the plan. We'll definitely send some written comments to accentuate some of the parts that we think are especially important. And I love how in your presentation you emphasize all the covered populations at the beginning, and some of the flexibility to meet the needs of specific covered populations. I think for us in our membership, one of the big learnings was just, how much commonality there is and some need for some big things across, but also how specifically there's some specific needs in each region. And so with those sub-grant opportunities in the future, I love the idea of making it flexible for the best ideas to emerge from the nonprofit and local government sector in partnership, with our private sector partners in the coming application. So thank you so much, and thanks to all on from the VACAP broadband peer group and all who partnered on that effort. My colleague Kristen Dahlman's on as well, so I'd want to turn to her too in case she had any comments from VACAP as well.
Hi, good afternoon. Just have a couple of questions. I did I did read through most of the 90 pages there. Really great effort there. I do want to ask, so what is is there a more specific plan for those with language barriers in the plan, or how does the department plan to address those with language barriers?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you for your question. And Eric, thank you for your comment as well. We thank you both for the work that you've done over the course of the time that I've been here, and then before I've been here as well. But Kristen, to answer your question, we're looking at within the implementation plan, developing specific need-based programs. And those need-based are based on the specific gaps within the populations. So for individuals with language barriers, we understand that communication wall could be something that we're paying attention to. And we look to develop or support either other organizations that are already conducting some programs to be able to close that gap, or developing a program that's able to close that gap, if that makes sense. But we understand that language barrier is something that is absolutely an obstacle. And we understand that can present other obstacles if not seen. So it is on the forefront of our mind, and we are developing thought processes of how we plan to attack that. I think those things will actually become a little bit more firm as we start getting feedback from federal and getting to this next phase of grant funding.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions?
I guess I just want to say hello from Computer Corps in Northern Virginia. We were one of those little white areas that wasn't included because we were advanced in our planning. So, but nice to be included in the conversation. I put some stuff in the chat. One thing Computer Corps does is we give away free refurbished devices. And I was wondering about your findings about the lending programs. You also said something about it's not really worth people's while to give out devices that will be obsolete in 2 or 3 years, which is most devices. So I'm curious about, the value of refurbishing and giving people computers. We give away about 600 computers a year, both desktops and laptops. And they're not fantastic. They're things that were donated to us, so they're not going to last much longer than a couple of years. So I was just curious about that.
Absolutely. So thank you for the question. And thank you for introducing yourself. I did see the information you put in the chat. So regarding the computer refurbished device lending program, that's come up a couple of times with the regions or some of the community action agencies. They've brought up the idea about refurbished computer lending, device lending, and getting those things out to the LMI community. And that is something that can be taken into consideration. I understand that internally we're going to go through some of these programs and bringing a lot of them to the forefront and determining which one is going to be a feasible option, which one is going to be a good long-term investment, and which one may be a little bit of a higher financial burden. But as we start having a conversation about that refurbished device lending program, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to ask a little bit more questions and ask about what you guys do at Computer Core. But also determining what resources we do have across Virginia that already does these services, and if we're able to amplify those services. But as I said, that just comes with time, and as we continue to build the plan, we'll know a little bit more. Chandler, I seen you came off of mute. Would you like to jump in?
Just to add to what you're sharing, Cam, and thank you, Donna, for those comments as well. It's really valuable to have you guys at the table as an organization on the ground doing this work. In the plan, we didn't mean to come across in the way saying that device refurbishment and device programs are not worthwhile. What we meant there is that, if we're going to invest in devices, we want it to be a sustainable long-term program. So, for example, we could do startup, right? Maybe we have startups with devices, but we want organizations like you guys to be out there ready to refurbish either those initial startup devices or devices that are coming out of the private sector to then be reinvested into the community. Not something that we wanted to keep off the table entirely. Just wanted to share that as a clarification comment before we went any further.
Yeah, and Donna, this is Dr. Holmes. I will share in some of the research, we've conducted since, the findings from the survey. And I hope you noticed that you all were referenced as an asset in the Commonwealth as part of the plan. And so one of the things we've seen is that there are entities that are nationally doing these in different markets, right? What you are doing, but significantly scaled up. However, those national models aren't replicable in more rural communities, right? In communities with low density. And so what we want to be able to do is identify models that can both occur in more urban communities, which is typically where we've seen a lot more of these efforts, versus rural communities. And so to Cameron and Chandler's point is to find out who else is doing this work, what are all the models across the state, and helping whether, again, provide seed capital or capital for expansion. And so we know that that's one of the key pieces that kept coming up. I mean, you and I talked right after COVID about the senior citizens complaining about not having devices and trying to do telehealth and telemedicine visits. And you all have been a resource to those folks, not just from resources in terms of devices, but even that navigation. And so I think one of the things that we've seen from some models is that you have to have, a certain number of population in order for them to even consider, donating or identifying sustainable models. And so definitely, as Cameron said, be able to sit down with you and pick your brain further on how things are going for you and what are some models because you're an expert in this space. What are some models that we could potentially replicate in other parts of the state? Because we are building out broadband with our funding primarily in rural communities, and this issue, as you can see through the regional plans, have come up. And so definitely stay in tuned, and we will be discussing opportunities to invest in this. This is definitely a need identified that I see us finding a way, whether it's direct capital through expansion or seed capital, but also trying to identify how to leverage existing partnerships that are happening across the state.
Absolutely. And Donna, I also did see your additional comment about staff intensive, how that looks on the back end. So I'm sure this conversation will continue, but thank you for your comments. And Brandy, I see that you also asked a question here in the chat. I can read it aloud, or feel free to come off of mute if you would like to ask your question. The question was, given that there were regional plans, is there any intention to address solutions or grant distribution on a regional level? Or is everything going to be competitive statewide or by cover population? So just to ask for clarity, it sounds like you're asking, is there going to be the ability of having a sub-grant level from the regional perspective? Is there going to be able to be other grants underneath the regional level? Does that sound right, Brandy?
Hey, Cameron. I'm not necessarily saying sub-grant,
Okay.
but, you know, is there any regional effort coming out of this, or is it just
Mhm.
going to be, you know, all one big effort statewide? Essentially, is there any acknowledgement of the differences in the regions that we just did those 9 plans for? As it comes down to actually starting to get the money flowing and programs implemented.
Hey,
Is there,
Brandy. Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just, just where is that going?
Well, we don't know. One, we don't know exactly how much we're going to get from NTIA for the capacity building allocation. And then two, we're going to be looking for you all to help us develop those programs. And so we will be using the data that came forth in the plan, the state plan and the regional plan to identify what are priorities. But ultimately, we are going to be looking for feedback from you all on what makes sense for the Commonwealth. I know we've thrown around a $30 million number. We don't know exactly what that number will be. So I would say stay tuned, because once the plan is submitted and approved by NTIA, then they will unlock access to the funding, and we think that will be second quarter. But they also have not issued the official guidelines of what will be eligible through that program. I think that's supposed to happen by the end of March, which is why our plan is actually due the beginning of January. And so I would say keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at NTIA. We will share that information with everyone within the state, but we really don't know what the expectations are yet for this program. They have not developed their guidelines yet. And so we'll have to consider what's eligible under the new program. I hope that they'll consider, I will tell you that we, myself and Cameron and Chandler, at many points in time have presented on our model that we did with you all as regional organizations. They really were thrilled and appreciated that we looked at community action agencies. I think Eric has shared previously that other states, his counterparts in other states, had talked about the work that his organization did with all of you in developing the regional plans and providing best practices and just really the peer group piece. And so I anticipate that we may see something to that level of support from NTIA, because I can't tell you how many times I'm on with staff, even most recently within the last 2 weeks, as Cam talked about the measurable objectives, that they said, you all probably did one of the most bottoms up approach in developing a statewide digital equity / opportunity plan, by really getting to the organizations who are soldiers in the communities doing this work day in and day out. And so I anticipate we'll see that as one of the evaluation criteria or requirements, or as an eligible activity, but we just don't know yet. And remember, there's also the opportunity, and I'm going to put this on Eric and Kristen's homework list. As we look at the federal money for competition, how do we make sure that your organizations are competitive to seek some of that funding as well? Again, they have raised us up multiple times as a model, and I anticipate, whether we set up a regional program within Virginia or whether they set up one at the federal level, that we will have something addressing the uniqueness of regional needs across the state.
Okay, thank you. I did have one more question, more as a parent than anything else. I was just wondering that there was no mention of social media under all of the issues related to cybersecurity.
So, and I'll jump in and respond. Thank you, Brandy. Within the actual regional plans, there were conversations about social media, and then also the privacy and the security concerns around social media. That is something that is nuanced, in the sense of social media is something that is relatively recent. So we don't have parameters around that, and we did not specify parameters within the plan based on social media. But we are looking at the cybersecurity aspect. We're looking at aspects of making public Wi-Fi or making the use of internet safe, widespread. And I think those conversations about how social media plays a part and how the media and advertising plays a part in a lot of this will definitely be a conversation as that comes. As we get a little bit more information where we're able to specify how we plan to address social media concerns or privacy and security concerns, we'll make sure to reach out. And as Dr. Holmes said, we will be reaching out to you guys to get your thought process to see what makes sense across the Commonwealth.
And Brandy, I will share one of the best practices I've seen, because several states have issued their draft plan for comment. A lot of states have tied it. If you remember the goal what Karen talked about, telehealth, telemedicine, smart farming, precision ag, we've seen some folks kind of bury it under that portion within their plan. I definitely want to talk more offline as to where you all think it would be best suited in our plan. Because we kind of saw it as going across many different realms in the plan versus being focused under one goal. And being one objective. But if you all have any recommendations as folks who are working in communities, especially with, young folks and being safe on social media, definitely want to hear from you on that. Because again, we looked at it as more cross pollination. And so, as I said, some other states are really focusing that within one goal area. And so definitely before the 29th, provide us any comments as you all see fit based on where you'd like to see that, based on the data you gather with your regional plans, or even just your day in, day out as running, a community action agency in the Commonwealth. Or if anyone wants to offer that as well. Like I said, we looked at it from a cross-pollination across the many goals and objectives of the plan. But if you all think we need to be more specific, I definitely ask you to provide comment around that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And are there any other questions either in the chat, or would anybody else like to come off of mute and offer a question? Right, hearing none. Hopefully that means that we answered all the questions. Hopefully that means it was thorough. But once again, I would like to thank you all for your time. This plan, once again, is out for public comment on the digital opportunity page. So we have until December 29th. Please feel free to send any of your comments or recommendations. But with that being said, thank you all for your time. And you'll be hearing from us very soon as we continue on in these next steps of our digital opportunity plan and what comes after. And with that said, thank you all so much. Have a good day.